There are certain subjects that can get a video demonetized here on YouTube, so I'll have to do some careful navigating to make sure I don't get the algorithm's attention by saying certain phrases like
preventative abortion or gain-of-function research.
Wait, let me take that again. No, wait!
Hit me.
The Outer Limits.
One of the lesser discussed perils of space travel is accidentally traveling into an apocalyptic future. I don't know if Buzz Aldrin ever experienced this, but if he did, he's been good enough to avoid talking about it and causing a paradox. For astronaut Joseph Reardon, though, his trip into Earth's destiny gives him a glimpse of a desolate world ravaged by a pandemic that was caused by people tinkering with a deadly virus and accidentally leaking it from a lab. This is a wholly unbelievable premise, and I am in no way advocating that this has ever happened. Anyway, rather than meeting the way cooler Max Rockatansky, Reardon comes across a walking tumor by the name of Andro, who just so happens to be an archaeologist who has memorized everything there is to know about the disease and its origins. According to Andro, it all comes down to one man, Bertram Cabot Jr., the microbiologist responsible for creating the deadly strain that nearly ended history. Unwilling to accept this reality, and without anybody bothering to ask whether the virus is still active, Reardon decides to take Andro back with him to the past, to convince the world not to repeat the same horrible mistake. All they have to do is go through the time warp again.
Just a jump to the left.
However, for narrative convenience, Reardon disintegrates during the journey, leaving Andro alone. Thankfully, the spacecraft's autopilot is not only good enough to land on its own without any help, but it also knows just where to put itself where the story will happen. The first person Andro comes across is Noelle, the future mother of Bertram Cabot Jr., who bides her time catching rubber frogs from the local lake. Though she also catches a glimpse of his mutated physical form and runs away, Andro, through the unexplained magic of so-called hypnotic suggestion, that requires neither hypnosis nor suggestion, is able to twist the minds of those around him so that he appears to them as the most trustworthy person imaginable, a black tie-wielding Martin Landau. Posing as a professor, Andro follows Noelle to her boarding house and checks in so that he can stalk her, fully intending to shoot and kill Bertram Cabot. At first, he is a little confused about the fact that the Bertram Cabot he eventually meets is actually Bertram Cabot Sr., that the junior Bertram hasn't been born yet, but he does catch on and decides to switch up his plan, figuring that he has to kill Noelle before she can marry Bertram Sr. In the early 1960s, you see, babies were conceived at the moment of marriage. They didn't invent sex until 1969. Alas, as many a time traveler has discovered, if you go into the past to kill a woman, you will inevitably fall in love with her. And despite Andro being an incredibly awkward stalker who sometimes seems to be a hideous monster, Noelle naturally falls in love with him too, and is eager to abandon her fiancé on their wedding day, after Andro pulls a gun on her, which as we all know is a super romantic thing to do. It takes a lot of talking before Andro gets the message that he doesn't actually have to commit murder in order to change the future, and he and Noelle run away together on his spaceship, leaving behind a heartbroken Bertram Cabot Sr. I feel for you, man, but it doesn't seem like she was the most committed of potential spouses, so maybe it's for the better. With nowhere else to go, Andro and Noelle go through the time warp again.
With your hands on your hips.
This time, however, Andro vanishes in a flurry of overacting, with Paradox having dissolved his very existence, leaving Noelle abandoned in an uncertain future. I enjoyed the premise of this episode, and I like the thematic idea of love changing the future instead of violence. Sure, it's glurgy as hell, but sometimes science fiction needs a bit of overt sentimentality. That said, what it doesn't need is so much ham. As much as I of course love Martin Landau, his acting is farcically over the top, and the writing is so clumsy and trite, you have to wonder whether this isn't the bumbling Andro's ham-fisted retelling of his own story. Granted, the makeup effects are really good, and there are some intelligent ideas at work, so I'm not going to write the whole episode off as bad. It's definitely worth a watch. And that's all I have on The Man Who Was Never Born. Now, as always, do those YouTube-y things, and check out my Patreon, and all that other good stuff. But until next time, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
I can't believe it's going to come to this. I won't. If I can find the time warp again...